That's what I need is a sabbatical.
Sabbatical.
We all need it. I think America needs a sabbatical. Or like just a Rumspringer. Like, just the president declare next all Americans can go on Rumspringer. I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
And welcome back to another edition of the Politics Unplugged podcast. And, this week what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about, the Republican Party and its evolution over the past, few decades. And I can't think of anybody smarter to talk about that who's, been there, seen it firsthand than my next guest here, Kurt Davis. Kurt Davis, he's the former executive director of the party back in the day. He's worked with governors, advised U.S. senators. He's got one hell of a resume, and when I talk to him about these kinds of things, I always feel like I'm a little bit smarter for it. Obviously we've had, I've disagreed with him in the past on this, but he's always made me think, and I've always appreciated that. And with that, I want to welcome Kurt to the show. Thanks, very much for being here. And let's start this conversation too, because as I was saying to you before the show, I wasn't really interested in bringing on somebody who's going to, bash the Republicans and MAGA or, bash, the other side or anything like that. I'm just trying to get an understanding of where the party has come from, why it's at where it's at now. Talk to us about when you first kind of got started in Republican politics. What was the party about then? Because my memories of early Republicanism when I was younger it was a really easy brand to remember.
Yeah. My first campaigns, Dennis, in Arizona in 1980, I was actually a student at NAU, and I was both the Reagan-Bush coordinator for Northern Arizona, and I was Barry Goldwater's Northern Arizona coordinator. And so it was the advent of post-Jimmy Carter, beginning of the Reagan, quote-unquote, revolution back then. And so, my view of that world started then. I went to Washington, D.C. and served in the Reagan administration, came back to Arizona and became executive director of the state party, as you alluded. And my first day on the job was the day that a brand new Republican governor, Ev Meekum, abolished the Martin Luther King holiday.
Welcome to the party.
Welcome to the party. And, through those trials and tribulations, actually, it made me think about a lot about the questions that I think you have for today, because we often looked, people get paid to look at politics and 20-second sound bites and one election or two election cycle analysis. But politics is much, much deeper than that and moves by decades and seminal events that transform, for good and bad, our political structure.
Yeah, I mean, because when you started in with the Reagan Revolution, when you were started engaging in politics, and up until the time you got into running the state Republican Party, like I said, it was a real easy brand to remember. It was like less government, low taxes, and keep
no deficits. Remember those days?
Yeah, right. But,
pay as you go,
and we'll get to all how it's changed over that. But like that, that was a pretty simple message. It's gotten a lot complicated since then. But back in those days, it was about kind of unwinding a lot of the former you talk about decades, unwinding a lot of the old New Deal policies from Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So what was tell us again, the project back then, how did that evolve from that, to the point where it starts getting a little more complicated than that?
Well, in your music parlance, can I riff for a second?
Yes.
I'll do it really quickly. Go all the way back to Richard Nixon going to China.
Yeah.
And at that time in America, and your idea of the brand of the Democrat and Republican Party, both their brands were very significant and easy to follow. Mm-hmm. But at that time, America had just finished its transformation of really becoming a manufacturing power. We had got through world wars. We had got through changes that the Roosevelt administration brought, which were significant in how we ran our country. But the bottom line was this. We had moved from being an agrarian society to a highly city-populated urban center, a country, with people who were trained in manufacturing, worked 20, 30 years in a company, left that company with a pension. They bought homes for the first time in their families' lives, post this period of time and during this period of time. So Richard Nixon goes to China, and I believe this is one of the most seminal events because for the first time in our country's history, we said as a nation, led by a Republican, that it was okay to engage in trade with people that we don't share quite frankly, any moral or economic relationship with. They were communists. Mm-hmm. Before then, we actually fought communists. We didn't like them. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, we're telling America, hey, these guys are a little bit of a different kind of communist. And so we're going to create this new nirvana and open up this billion-person country for trade, and it's going to make us all really happy and rich. So let's fast forward. That was the beginning of the end of America's manufacturing supremacy. This concept of you could be raised and graduate from high school and go to work in the steel mills or an auto plant or GE or wherever that was and have a great and honorable career and then provide your family a house and a home and you had a retirement. By the way, paying for your kids to go to college. First time college attendance, women in spades going to college for the first time in generations. So all that's happening until we decide that we're going to cut a deal with China. And then we start hearing both parties talking about free trade for free trade's sake. That basically, look, all trade's good. It doesn't matter who you're doing it with if it benefits us economically.
Yeah.
Well, it was benefiting certain people economically. And we created in this country really an upper middle class and an upper class. And then as we basically began to ship out all of our manufacturing jobs, and we started doing deals like NAFTA and all this other stuff, and again, we're telling people how great it's going to be for them. We were slowly dismantling the true middle class, mm-hmm. the people that Joe Biden likes to describe in Scranton, right? Those people, by the way, don't exist anymore. They existed when he was a young man. They don't exist anymore. Because we don't really have a traditional middle class in this country, and both parties were part of eviscerating it mm-hmm. through these trade policies and doing trade with anybody. We moved away from you could put your money in a if you're an older American, you put your money in savings accounts and you would earn 5, 6, 7%. Now, all of a sudden, we're giving away free money to finance basically a knowledge, quote unquote, knowledge economy because we do no manufacturing in the United States. And so we got cheap money, and in turn, all of a sudden, we're telling people they got to put their money in the marketplace, which they weren't prepared for or did not grow up learning. I'm sure when you were a kid, when I was a kid, my dad didn't sit around and talk about the stock market. He wasn't in it.
My father did not talk about the stock market at all.
So all of a sudden, you're telling people they better know the stock market.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
all of this is going on year in and year out. And then as we eviscerate this middle class, the people, we're going to people too in their 50s and going, hey, by the way, yeah, sorry your manufacturing job. Sorry GE is moving all of its plants to South America or Africa or wherever they're moving. But, at 55, we're going to train you with some new skills, yeah. Which, sorry, but there is that. They're eventually old dogs don't learn new tricks.
Yeah.
And so you've created this, and by the way, we had illegal immigration back then. I was mm-hmm. flipping hamburgers as a kid in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. I worked with probably 50% of the people I worked with at Bob's Big Boy weren't here illegally. But you know what? Most people didn't really care, and the reason they didn't care was because they had these jobs they went to where they could get a pension, buy a home, send their kids to college.
Yeah.
So illegal immigration was, those were people that went to San Joaquin Valley and picked lettuce and, and crops. Mm-hmm. Well, once you eviscerate the true middle class, then people notice illegal immigration because it becomes a lot more real for a big segment of the population, because in their minds, those are the people that have been taking the jobs. Mm-hmm. So that creates a whole nother form of politics. And this is the worst form of politics, which is, a straw man politics. So we've gone through this collectively as a country, really going back, I believe, to that day that Nixon went to China, and it's been a devolution of America's middle class. And by the way, the Democrat, we have MAGA, blah blah blah, Republican populism, however you want to describe it. On the Democrat side, they were the party, quote unquote, of the working man. Well, somebody decided when we quit manufacturing things, hey, let's cut a deal with the radical environmental movement, and that created downward pressure on these people's jobs as well. And it became a lot more convenient and cheaper to ship these jobs overseas because the regulatory environment on the environmental side got too heavy. And so were they the party of environmentalists or the party of the working man? Mm-hmm. And they confused their party as well. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those people are now MAGA, quote unquote, Republicans, or, populists that are irritated. So you see this explosion of independence that has gone on. And independence, there's no independent party. There's a group of people that are disenfranchised from both the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, for a lot of different reasons. But one of them is this whipsaw on the economic middle class side, which is, who is standing up for the working man? Yeah. Who does want to have America believe and be able to be a country where you can grow up, your kids can actually get a job and have a pension and send their kids to college? Does that country and its politics really exist anymore? And I'm not sure it does. And I don't believe it. I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble with my fellow Republicans, but it's the truth.
And I think you just did a good job of explaining your version of kind of the ingredients that went into where the modern Republican Party is right now. And I would add, too, that I think the kind of critical mass point where, the torch was kind of lit for that probably was the economic meltdown in 2007.
Absolutely.
2008 that spurred the Tea Party.
Correct.
And whatnot. And take us through, like who are these voters? Why are they so angry?
Well, because they were told for so long, hey, we trade with China, not only are they not going to be communists anymore, it's going to be great for you. Mm-hmm. It hasn't turned out so great for them. One, China's still communist. They now have Hong Kong. And it hasn't turned out so great for a lot of those folks. Where is the pension? It's gone. Find a pension anywhere in the United States other than if you work for government. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist. So so then we're teaching people not to be loyal to the place they work, which creates a whole other problem. So these are people that are angry because they got told something, and quite frankly, over time, it's been the complete opposite. And I'll give you a recent example. Everyone's up and down cheering and everything about our giant chip plant in North Phoenix, right? Oh, it's going to be great. All the jobs, blah, blah, blah. And, there are a lot of jobs in building the facility. How many Americans do you think are going to be working there at the end of the day? Truly. And are we going to be just importing a lot of people from Taiwan, and nothing against people coming from Taiwan? Yeah. But let's not tell people that it's going to be, 90% Americans that are working there, because it's not going to be. And I think what's happened is that anger quotient has risen, and those people finally said, I'm not buying the message anymore. And along comes guys like Donald Trump that know how to pinpoint that. Yeah. And he sat on that issue when nobody said it was an issue, and it propelled him to the presidency.
I remember talking to you back in 2016 about NAFTA, like bringing up NAFTA, and like we were kind of just amazed that a presidential election trade policy would be a central, because I was like one of those, because elections have become so much about personality and less about policy, and I can't think anything more policy wonkish than foreign trade policy.
Right.
But he questioned all of that, and that really hit something. Again, I'm not trying to I don't want to bash on one side or the other side, But that certainly resonated with a lot of folks.
Yep.
And I know I'm from the Midwest, and I'm out here because, manufacturing was eviscerated. I'm out here because my father was, outsourced. He was replaced by machines back at the factory in my hometown. So he moved the family out here. So I can kind of see it from that perspective. But when Trump brought up that trade policy, that was something that was really that really hit a nerve with folks.
Yeah, look, it resonated with me, and I'm college educated. This other notion that all these people that buy into that are angry about the social contract that has been hammered in our country, and I believe it's a social contract that we used to have with our workforce. They're not all uneducated rubes.
No,
these are, and I know, there are some in the in both movements. Right?
Any large population, there's,
but there are many people who see this change. I don't know if you remember. I was talking to somebody the other day. You remember, you used to go to Walmart because Walmart actually advertised we sell American products. Remember those days? I mean, they don't do that anymore. How come? And, we used to, our trading partner that we used to trade with, I remember, you probably remember as a kid, you had a lot of things made in Japan, right? Yeah. Well, Japan was a friend of the United States. We shared freedom at its base, and we also saw that a strong Japan was better, for world security. All of a sudden, we just said, Japan, there's a bigger guy on the other side of the other side of your bay, and we're going to do deals with them, and they're going to give us even cheaper labor and access to a gigantic marketplace. And look what we did to the Japanese economy. It still hasn't ever recovered. So, and we're doing deals with people, again, that are not supportive of our demise. I'm sure you covered the other day the story about the Chinese and Russians and their digital efforts to destabilize. So this is our friend that we trade with, and so I think Americans, educated, not educated, began to figure out this isn't really working out like I thought it was going to work out. I see a lot of money being made. But I don't see any form of security for my family.
Well, I think that there is a lot to that. I mean, if you look at, remember Black Tuesday in 1987, when the stock market crashed back then, look at the numbers then compared to where they are today. And I think a lot of Americans have seen those numbers just go through the roof, but then they're looking at their bank accounts and going, well, how come I haven't seen any of that? But I do want to kind of flip back and go back and focus a little bit more on Arizona here, the Republican Party here. Yeah. Because I think like one of the more significant.
And we were ahead of the game, by the way, in this change.
But I do want to focus a little bit on Arizona. I think a big factor that changed the makeup of the party probably was clean elections.
Absolutely.
I think it was one of those things that really diluted the power and influence of the party here in Arizona. And it was one of those liberal ideas that really tremendously benefited Republicans.
Yeah, I always laugh because every one of the reforms, and there were a number of them, there was one called Prop 200 when I was ED of the party, which was that it actually limited how much money could be given, blah, 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 and you couldn't earmark money through the parties for specific candidates. That was a big change. And then we went to early ballots, which, fast forward today, everybody wants to talk about early ballots.
That was a big Republican idea, right?
Well, Democrats were early ballots. Republicans said it was a disaster, and within 2 years, they owned it.
Yeah,
right?
You're right. Republicans did vote for early ballots back in the day.
Every reform has virtually come from the left, and then the Republicans have outdone the Democrats in how to use it. I mean, I laughed to myself because I remember the fights over, wow, we can't have this early ballot thing's a disaster, and literally 2 election cycles, Republicans are just dominating early ballots. And so you're like, these reforms work. Same thing. You want to the changes with independent redistricting, so fundamental, in my opinion, to destroying both civility in our system, in our process here in Arizona, but actually creating the advent of people who would have never been able to be elected 25, 30 years ago. Because before, there was some social order, and you had to be able to raise money, which means you had to go to people who had money and convince them that you were a legitimate and good candidate. Well,
It's
now
like
you
the
don't.
political version of Shark Tank.
Yeah, it's good. That's a great. Well, we don't have to do that anymore. You just, get enough signatures of your fellow friends, and boom, you're getting government money to run, and it allows you to be kind of as extreme as you want to be. And thus we created, and then, by the way, in the old redistricting days, when you were sitting next to that Democrat on the floor, and you were a Republican, you kind of want to be a little nice to them, because at redistricting time, they had a vote on your district, right? So there was a little more civility in the ballpark in this game, because you had to do business with them. So we eviscerated that, and then we said, hey, be as extreme as you want in primaries, because literally of the districts, 8 to 10's getting out there, are competitive. The rest are all decided both in a Democrat primary or Republican primary. Well, extremism wins in those primaries. And now you have government money to run with to be as extreme as you want to be. So we have created, that has done horrific damage to our process on both sides. But again, I remember Republicans said it was going to be so bad, and now they
And then it's kind
enjoying
of
the thing.
kind of a negative feed loop, right? Because you've got people picked in the primaries. They don't necessarily represent the views of a majority of their districts.
Nope.
So they go down there and they do their thing, and then you've got people in those districts saying, they don't represent me, and so they may not vote, or they get angry, and it keeps spiraling downward.
When I was down there as the ED of the party and we were doing redistricting, you could have never come up with maps this extreme if you wanted to, back when you had to horse trade. These districts are not competitive. They are only competitive in primaries, and thus they've also led to, quite frankly, the growth of I love both parties. We can't understand why there's so many independents. I can tell you why there's a lot of independents. They look at both primaries of both parties and go, "That's not me. That is not me." So I'm going to go to the safe place called the quote unquote that being an independent, because then I don't have to deal with these things that are not me.
Yeah. So what's the what's the idea of moving forward though? From this, because it seems like with the Republican Party, they're selling a lot of anger at this point, and they're, like you're saying, tapping into that anger that life didn't work out the way they felt they were promised.
Right.
You have had a guy at the top of that, was President Trump, feeding into that. What's the way forward? What's the new politic?
The honest answer is, one is pray for another Ronald Reagan, or a John F. Kennedy. I don't, it doesn't matter to me, either side. Great statesmen and women that can rise above this. Now, that's a simpleton answer. My real answer is, instead of these multimillionaires funding super PACs to influence the current system, if we could get like 5, 6 of them together and put together $2 billion and truly create a new party that has a platform, that actually gets registered and can function in all 50 states and be competitive, I'd rather see them spend their money on that, quite frankly, than trying to manipulate this current process, which is stuck in neutral. In every election, both state and federally, we're going to be somewhere in that realm of 52-48, right, all the time. And that's not going to propel our country forward, just because we're going to play hate games for everybody's 4-year, 6-year terms. So in 2-year terms. So I think we've probably, and this is hard for me to say, look, I've been a Republican my whole life. I said Barry Goldwater's first campaign I ever worked on, but I'm not sure where we can be a two-party country anymore, because we've chased people into no man's land, and they're in a place where they don't really have a party. And we need to have parties. There needs to be organized structure in our system, so that we do actually trade in ideas, not personalities, and we trade in the future, not in hatred or the past.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that's missing so much from our political side. I mean, we're still talking about the last election. Seriously. I mean, most Americans are like, yeah, let's maybe think about the next one. And by the way, I really don't want to hear about that till after the new year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need Joe Biden TV commercials already piping on my TV.
Oh, they're coming.
I saw one the other night, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, there's some Arizona specific ones coming.
So, but and I this is independents. They're not. There's going to probably be two. There's probably 2 or 3 parties built inside of there that of significance, and that's if we could take because it'll take $1 billion to build a national party. It will.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll take $1 billion.
But, the people who usually fund that, just to push back a little bit, the reason why they're funding these super PACs is because they have a reason that they want to do that. They want their senator in there. I mean, you have to.
But he can't really do anything.
Yeah, I know. But you have to have a group of people with this idea, that they may not want special outcomes or something like that. I mean, it just gets really difficult, I think you're.
And by the way, John McCain was absolutely right about Citizens United.
Oh yeah,
he was absolutely.
A lot
right.
of people were right about that. That was.
And by the way, I fought with him about it. He was right.
Yeah, you fought again. You thought it was initially it was a good thing, and now it's
yeah.
How can you? Anyway, that's a whole other topic for a different.
I've been
podcast.
I've been in a business where C4s and confident, is part of the circle, and has that been good for Arizona politics, national politics? No, it hasn't. At least in the old days, those newspapers had to put the reporter's name on there that was completely trashing the other guy. But you knew who it was.
Yeah.
Right? That should be part of who we are, too, which is, everyone likes to talk about transparency. Well, let's be transparent about what our politics are.
Yeah.
And if you don't like mine, that's fine. Then run against mine and tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, Congress can always pass a law. Oh, wait.
Well, we get into all that kind of stuff, right? The rules that we've changed over the years have changed the game, and the game to a lot of people doesn't make sense anymore. Yeah. And again, if they can't look at a house at the end of a cul-de-sac, driving there on a Sunday afternoon, going, someday I'd like to buy that house. If now they drive by and say, I never can buy that house, I'll never be sending my kids away to college. That's the American dream is in trouble. And if the American dream's in trouble, our politics are going to be in trouble.
Well, I hate to leave it on such a negative note. I mean, but I do want to thank you for joining us. But that's all the time we have for this. And Kurt, really thank you very much for stopping by in the conversation. Again, just trying to get some understanding of who the Republican Party, the voters are, how we came to here. And I want to thank you for your insights on that here today. Welcome back to the second half of the podcast. Really want to thank Kurt for stopping by. I know kind of a different topic of what we're doing, not very topical, but I think it's important to try to get some perspective from time to time on how you end up on this. I think Kurt's a really good resource for that, like a really smart guy.
Very thoughtful guy.
And I know it's a bit of a heavier topic, and I promise everybody we got something to lighten the mood here at the end, because
yes,
I know last week our top 10 list of definitive American bands was so popular. We're going to follow that up there with our top 10 list of the greatest fictional bands.
Fictional artists. Yes.
Fictional music artists.
Fictional music artists not named Spinal Tap, because that makes it boring. Because
Spinal Tap is just the king of all this stuff. They're just the perennial, all of that. But you're going to want to stick around for that. But Colin, general thoughts on the discussion there with Kurt. I mean, he has seen some changes with the Republican Party.
And the end result was kind of bleak, wasn't it? It was maybe not our most uplifting segment we've done so far, but great and thoughtful and made a lot of sense. You know, the middle class is largely
angry.
Is angry.
Whatever's left of it is angry.
And has been diminished over time.
Yeah.
And I don't think much of the middle class. I don't think many people in the middle class necessarily view either party as really looking out for them.
Yeah, and and when you're angry with that, he has seen the party really shift from a company, a party being very much pro free trade, very internationalist. There's this retreat now to isolationism, and it was also a party when he started of like low taxes, less government interference. And I don't think that's the case for the Republican Party. I think the Republican Party in general is searching for whatever the project is at this point. Now, people disagree with me. That's fine. My point is I'm not trying to criticize one way or the other. It's just my observation is I don't know if they know what the project is. Under the Reagan years, the Reagan Revolution, it was pretty simple. Like I said, lower taxes, less government regulation, get government out of my lives. And that was the sell. That was the project.
And that really doesn't seem to be much of the thrust these days.
It's situational. Yeah. It's, and whatnot. And look, I hope, Kurt gave you something to think about. Like, again, you disagree with him or agree with him, whatever. I just think he's a thoughtful person. He's got some interesting insights into this, and hopefully it gives you something to think about.
Absolutely.
So with that, let's move on to something like we were just teasing here a second ago. A little lighter.
The bar's low for that. Yeah. Greatest fictional musical artists.
Yes, and again, reminder: Spinal Tap is just the perennial number one. So
yes.
We could not include Spinal Tap on the list.
It seemed like a waste of time. Spinal Tap is brilliant. They're the definitive fake band.
Yes. Yes.
And that was really our only stipulation. I know on my list I avoided fictional bands that went on to have massive careers just because that's felt like the
Monkees.
Exactly. I don't know if the Monkees are on your list.
No,
I didn't do the Monkees simply because
if they're doing big, massive, Jimi Hendrix opened up for the Monkees.
Yes.
God, I wouldn't have get a time machine to see that when Jimi Hendrix opened. Oh, that would have been beautiful.
I had the look of the Monkees fan. Just seeing Hendrix on stage had to be
the
amazing.
Monkees fan's mom, which you knew back then, was probably at the concert.
Yes. Terrified
about what the sounds coming out of this man's guitars.
Why is that gentleman's guitar on fire?
That would have been beautiful.
It would have. That would have been beautiful. Do you want me to start? You want to start?
We can start with. I'll start this week. I think you started last week.
I think I started last week.
And then, I think what we'll do is I'll go from 10 to 1.
10 to 1. Okay.
Yes. And pardon me if you don't get the references in the movies. I'll try to explain some of that, but
if you can get a little obscure,
it can. So number 10, I've got Ellen Aim and the Attackers. Now, this is from an 80s movie called Streets of Fire.
Okay.
And the front woman of this band was Diane Lane. Why did they make the list? Were they particularly great? No. I had a crush on Diane Lane before she was my preteen crush.
Any guy roughly our age knows exactly why.
Yeah.
As soon as you said Diane Lane, we go, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Cherry Valens from The Outsiders. Yeah.
Okay.
This is really the reason why. And by the way, if you've not watched Streets of Fire, I'm not saying go watch the movie per se, but just go check out the cast. It will blow you away.
Yes. Yes. We talked about it yesterday, and I looked up the cast, and it's amazing.
It's amazing that all the people that were in that. They were just like super huge stars, except the main star in that, which was Michael Paré.
Michael Paré.
Who was supposed to be the next big thing.
Yes.
And
did a lot of like straight to video after a brief blast in the 80s.
But it's quite prolific.
Yeah.
Number 9, I'm going to go the Misfits. Not the punk rock band, but from the cartoon Gem. Why? Because they're awesome. They were the bad girls. They were the That's that. What's more rock and roll than just like being the heel, right?
No. I mean, I got a cartoon on my list, so that's fine.
Oh yeah. I've got a cartoon. I've got some puppets on here too.
Okay. I know where you're going there.
Number 9, Dewey Cox, Walk Hard.
Is that number 8? I think
That's our number 8. Number 8.
Okay.
Number 8.
Dewey Cox. Okay.
Dewey Cox, Walk Hard.
Yeah.
Great movie. John C. Reilly.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I think it's an underrated movie. It makes fun of all the kind of like biopic tropes.
Yes.
It's just fantastic.
Yes. And he's brilliant in everything he does.
Yes. Including Showtime, the HBO series on the Lakers.
Oh,
have you seen that?
He's Jerry Buss,
Yeah,
right?
he's great.
I've seen the first few.
It's like amazing.
I haven't seen the full thing. Yeah.
I didn't think I'd be interested in that, but his portrayal of Jerry. Anyway, we're getting on a sidetrack. Number 7
Yes.
is Otis Day and the Knights from Animal House.
Okay.
Great band.
They're on my list too.
Great band. Had a a lot of fun.
Shamalama Ding Dong. Yes.
Yes. Oh, good stuff. Number 6, of course, Blues Brothers.
Okay.
Blues Brothers on there, really. Now I struggle with that because like they were kind of a real band. I mean,
yes.
Donald Duck Dunn on bass, like legit.
Yeah, Steve Cropper. Yes,
I believe Paul Schaefer was the leader of that band.
Yeah,
and I believe when they released their record, John Belushi had the #1 record in the country, was on the #1 TV show Saturday Night Live in the country at that time, and the #1 movie at the time, Animal House. So it was just like that's a triple threat.
That's tough to top.
That's really tough to top. Number 5, CB4. Now, if you don't remember, that's the old Chris Rock movie.
Yes, and there are going to be a lot of people who don't remember the old Chris Rock.
It's the old Chris Rock movie. They were a rap group from Low Cache, California. One of the members in the band, which is still one of my favorite names, remember, was I think Chris Rock played the leader, Gusto. And then one of the guys in the group was Stabmaster Arson.
Nice. Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I got another cartoon here. Death Clock from Apocalypso.
Okay. Yeah.
Adult Swim.
Yeah.
If you don't know, go look it up.
Yeah.
And then number 3, I've got Steel Dragon from the movie Rockstar with Marky Mark.
Yeah.
If you remember that, really terrible movie, real terrible. But Steel Dragon, it had Zach Wilde in that band, and the guy from The Wire, Dominic West. Dominic West.
Yes.
Yeah. They were in that
McNulty.
band. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And stand up and shout. Oh, come on. Okay, so and then number 2, I've got Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem.
Yeah.
Oh, God, what a great horn section.
Yes. Blue Lou, I believe.
Oh God.
Yes. Terrific drummer. Tough to beat Animal.
And a buddy of mine reminded me.
Prototype for Dave Grohl.
Yeah, and a buddy of mine reminded me, it's like they're loosely based off. You heard. I have not reported on this. I don't want to be spreading false information. I've just been told, and I can see it. But it's like it was loosely based on, what Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show.
Okay.
I mean, you can kind of see that.
About a month ago, I saw a clip on YouTube of Steely Dan performing on like Don Kirshner's rock concert in the early 70s, and I was struck by how much they look like Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. It kind of nailed the whole vibe.
So good. I mean, dudes were born to rock and roll, man.
Yeah.
They were just born to, you could see those Muppets trashing a hotel room.
Yes. Absolutely.
In like Lawrence, Kansas or something like that. Just trashing
the Holiday
them.
Inn
Yeah,
on
the
highway.
Holiday. Just trashing it.
Yeah.
Up. And then my number 1 all-time favorite fictional group, sans Spinal Tap, is, and I know this is on your list, is Citizen Dick from the movie Singles. With their hit song, Touch Me, I'm Dick.
I'm Dick, yes. Yeah.
Just great stuff.
Yes. Matt Dillon as Cliff Ponsier, the leader, and the rest of the band was Pearl Jam before Pearl Jam was big at all. I believe they shot it before.
I believe Eddie Vedder, the singer of Pearl Jam, was the drummer of Citizen Dick.
Yes. And it's the rest of the band.
Yes. And you told me you had a T-shirt.
I had a Citizen Dick T-shirt with song names on the back. The best of which was Bust of the Boz, which anyone from the Northwest from that era would appreciate the failure of Brian Bosworth as a member of the Seahawks. The rest of the songs, I think,
I just remember him getting steam trucked by Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson, yes. That's pretty much the only memory anyone has of the Boz, Brian Bosworth, as an NFL player. All right. So here's mine. And yeah, you're going to hear a few of those again. Number 10, The Way Outs from the Flintstones. Do you remember The Way Outs? They were like an alien band that were like sectioned out somehow. So they go, we're going to go way out, way out. And when they went way out, they would jump and all their little sections would separate and then come back together.
Okay.
Right.
Really bubblegummy.
Yes.
They were like the yummy guy. Yeah, that kind of,
So, okay.
Like, was it not the zombies.
Yummy. Archies?
Maybe
I don't know.
Something.
I don't know.
Something,
I'm not going to
like
pretend to have any clue on that one. Number 9, The Folksmen. It's the three guys from Spinal Tap, but in a mighty wind.
Yes.
Their classic song being
Good choice.
Eat at Joe's.
Good choice.
Except the J's burned out on the sign, so they say Eat at O's, as I recall. Number 8, Boys for Now. It's the boy band that Tina is obsessed with on Bob's Burgers. She has a crush on one of the members of Boys for Now.
Okay.
And they do a remarkable job of creating the whole boy band aesthetic in that episode.
Okay.
Number 7, and this is specifically why I pushed to make this fictional artist as opposed to fictional band, so I can include this one, and it's Johnny Bravo. Greg Brady and the Brady Bunch.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I cannot believe I forgot to put Johnny Bravo on my list.
And do you remember why they needed Greg Brady to be Johnny Bravo?
I can't remember. I just remember him dressing, the way he dressed for Johnny Bravo.
Yes.
Was like
and he got a very
amazing.
big ego, and then at the end he finds out the only reason they wanted him was he fit the suit.
Like Garth Brooks a couple decades later, right?
Yes,
You know?
and we all learned a very valuable lesson, as the Brady Bunch goes.
Which was what?
Be humble, I guess. I don't know.
The only lesson I remember from the Brady Bunch is if you tell people if you tattle on somebody, the only thing you're telling them is that you're a tattletale.
Yes.
Which is like the Brady way of saying like snitches get stitches or something like that.
I think so. Yeah. All right, number 6, Kathleen Turner Overdrive.
Yes.
Formerly Sonic Death Monkey. Formerly Barry Jive in the Uptown 5.
Yes.
Jack Black's band in High Fidelity, which is a wonderful movie.
Yes.
All right.
They were under consideration for me.
Yeah. I've got my list of just missed too. Number 5, Stillwater from Almost Famous.
Almost Famous. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 4, Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem.
Okay.
Number 3, Autobahn from the Big Lebowski, the Nihilists, in sort of a tribute to Kraftwerk, I think. Number 2, and I had to put them high, Otis Day and the Knights.
Yeah.
I'm a University of Oregon guy. I used to, literally, my freshman year, I would walk past the Animal House, the actual Animal House, on my way to campus, and then they tore it down that year because it had been condemned and had like squatters in it.
That place, historical landmark, renovated.
Yes. They tore it down and replaced it with the world's ugliest medical building. But still, to this day, like end of the third quarter at a Duck football game, they're playing Shout by, fictionally by Otis Day and the Knights.
Yeah.
They play it between quarters and everyone dances, and it's a big thing. So Ducks love Otis Day and the Knights.
And I know what number 1 is.
Yeah, number 1, Citizen Dick.
Yes.
You can't beat Citizen Dick.
No, you just can't.
No, the ones I had that just missed, Eddie and the Cruisers.
Eddie and the Cruisers was something I missed on too. I was obsessed with that movie as a young preteen.
It was one of those where as a teen, I'd go to the drive-in a lot with my friends, and that was always on the double. It was like always the number 2 film. It was the second part of everyone. Big Fun, which is the band that did Teenage Suicide, Don't Do It in Heathers.
Okay.
And what I didn't realize until I looked this up, that band is like Don Dixon and Mitch Easter.
Okay.
Who are big, like, Southern alternative rock, that whole, like, Athens scene. Mitch Easter was in Let's Active, and both of them worked heavily with REM. Billy and the Boingers, who were from Billy Big Bill the Cat. It's from Bloom County, the old Bloom County comics.
Oh, yeah.
The Wonders.
Yeah.
from that thing you do.
Yeah, except I hate that song so much.
Oh, see, because it's an Adam Schlesinger song from
I don't
Fountains of
care.
Wayne,
I know,
and
I
I love Fountains of Wayne.
Do that thing you do.
But I mean, yeah. But for what it was supposed to be, it was just about perfect. You could buy it as the hit of this band. Anyway, and then the last one, Lenny and the Squigtones. Lenny and Squiggy from from Laverne and Shirley formed Lenny and the Squigtones, and I believe they actually put out an EP.
That actually sounds Lenny and the Squigtones. Actually, that should be like a SpongeBob SquarePants band.
Yeah.
That's what that sounds like at this point.
But yeah, I think they actually released an EP.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. You know, if you have any recommendations for that, hit us up on Twitter or X or whatever like that. And hope you enjoyed this week's edition of the podcast. See you next week.
All right. See you. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.